Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Something, Some Places at Certain Times. Sean is back for this episode.
Uh,
So, let's get into it. This time we are talking about Drifting Home, the new anime movie that came out on Netflix a couple weeks ago, September 16th, in Japan, and I think it came out the same day in the US. So, I watched it a couple nights ago. Sean, you watched it a week or two ago, right?
yeah, exactly a week ago. Actually, the week it came out because it hit theaters and Netflix in Japan at the same time. So I watched it in at home in Netflix Japan.
All right, so let's
Last.
start with a spoiler-free section. And as I've mentioned in a earlier episode, we are trying to shorten these a bit. So the spoiler-free section is going to be really quick impressions, not many details. So, I'm gonna be honest. I didn't really like it that much.
I'm glad that you said that because I'm on the same page as you. This director has made directed movies in the past that I liked a lot. He's 10 years younger than me. He's born in '88, or so 11 years younger than me. Older than me. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
And Yeah, 1988, and he's known as being like a young prodigy type of guy. He made his first debut, like he animated himself, directed himself, and put it onto the internet. So that
Mm.
got him big. And everything since that he did by himself has kind of been let down. And people have been being like, "Oh, he's the next Miyazaki. He's the next big thing," and I just don't see it.
Uh
His
huh.
name is Ishida.
I yeah, I was. I thought it would be good, and it looked good from the trailer, the little clip they play on Netflix when you're scrolling. I liked the idea of it. It does have a Miyazaki or a Studio Ghibli look to it, and I just without spoilers, you can see that obviously they're drifting home. They get stuck in an apartment building that's drifting out at sea somewhere without explanation. And I feel like maybe they saw the train scene in Spirited Away, and they were like, "What if we made that a whole movie?" And they just found a way to, put a different object instead of a train. It's a building, and it's just drifting at sea because they like the aesthetic of it. But I just feel like the story never really came together. It looks nice. The characters are nice and everything. There were parts of it that I liked, but in general, I just didn't like the story is just kind of confusing. It didn't really make sense to me.
Okay, did you ever watch or hear of Bubble? From it was also a Netflix original movie,
Yes, I,
anime
I haven't
movie.
seen it yet, but I would say I've been more excited to see that than the reaction I had to watching this.
Okay, so Bubble is also about a dystopic future where everything's flooded, and they're both Netflix original movies. So when I watched this movie, I was just like, this is just like Bubble where everything's flooded. Uh, but unlike you, you said you called it a drifting home, which is the English name. The Japanese name is Ameo Sugeru Horyu Danchi, and a danchi is the last word I said. It's like a public housing complex, and danchi is a very Japanese word that implicits an image to Japanese people of like I can relate to the Chicago Robert Taylor homes, the
Mm-hmm.
public housing complexes. Do you know about Robert Taylor homes, Carson?
Not specifically.
Just public housing complexes that were like this is post World War II baby boom that they needed to make public housing complexes for people who had all
Mm-hmm.
these kids, and they got torn down because they didn't need them anymore. And that's what this
Mm.
movie is about. It's about a danchi, and in the Japanese version, I watched it in Japanese, and they say danchi, and that implicits like a mind an image of the Japanese mind. Whereas just calling it drifting home, this is kind of vague
I
because it's
was
like
curious to hear your take on it because I figured you might have more insight into the Japanese culture behind it, or if any of the like kind of spiritual stuff in it was based in more Japanese mythology, and maybe I could appreciate it more. But without getting into spoilers, yeah, I just the the story didn't make a lot of sense to me. I could kind of see how they had like attachment to these apartments. I think that was clear throughout the movie, but it wasn't obviously I don't get that understanding of the naming of the types of apartments and stuff. So
Yeah, yeah. You don't know much about Robert Taylor homes in America either. It's the same concept as these public government housing projects, not projects, buildings they built for
uh,
people who had lots of kids that were very outdated, so they had to be torn down, and they're very industrialized. Like there's a Russian equivalent, not Bolshoi beds, but there's similar thing in Europe. Uh, so it's very cultural, and for this movie to be released in America, released worldwide, it's such a big feather. It's kind of strange to me because it's a very cultural movie.
mm, yeah, I guess I don't know if it was just a cultural thing that didn't click, but I feel like there's more to it that made me not like it so much. So like I'll give this a rating so we can get into the spoilers of it. And well, the last thing I'll say is, the music was nice, the visuals were nice. The opening scene, I thought this movie would be great, but then after that it was just kind of a letdown to me. So I would give it a 5 out of 10, which to me is like, if it's on TV, you got nothing else to watch, is it's not, you know, you won't feel like you wasted 2 hours of your life on it, but still there's like no real reason to watch it.
Yeah, I gave it a 2 out of 5 for the same reason. It kind of was too long for me. Like this movie should not have been damn near 2 hours long. It could have been a good like 85 minutes, hour and a half at best, and gotten the same message across. 2 hours. And movies are getting longer. I get that, but this movie was just too damn long for me to give it a good rating for that.
Yeah, especially as an anime movie, I kind of expected it to be shorter and for it to be such a relatively small story. But let's get into some of the details here. So spoiler warning, we are talking about spoilers now. All right. Yeah, so like I said, the opening scene when they just show like the workers around the building and they're talking about the ghosts, and then it makes the whole thing seem kind of spiritual. So I'm like, "Oh, this is going to be really cool." But then the rest was just kind of yeah, this once they are drifting, it's like the whole like I said, the whole story just doesn't really make sense to me. I think there are too many times when they're like trying to leave the what's Sinopo behind, and then
Yeah,
they
yeah.
come back for him, and then they leave him and come back for him, and then he leaves. It's like it was
That,
just
that
over and over.
So part of the movie, part of this is a coming of age story, and that's not really clear to the like, I guess, American audience per se, because the movie starts after the opening sequence with their last day at uh, sixth grade of elementary school,
Hmm.
Kurokunense, and that's like when they enter junior high school, and that's when they become adults, not adults, but they become older people.
Right.
And this movie's mostly about the Natsuke and Kosuke's relationship, the main
Hmm.
guy and the main girl, and their relationship around this danshi, this apartment complex, and his grandfather, who was like her grandfather because she went there to escape her parents' struggling marriage. But all of that was it wasn't given much time to be explained. It was kind of just like, it was shown to us. So I understood, oh, her parents, she's divorced and she had a rough, because my parents are divorced. Your parents aren't divorced. So I got that part.
Hmm.
It's just like, but it didn't really sell to me. It kind of just fell flat. And the movie being 2 hours long made it even harder for me to be like, okay, yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
And the characters also were sucked. All the characters, I didn't really care for any of them.
Yeah, it was like I like coming of age stories and showing this like kind of brother sister relationship. I think I guess like kind of more common from what I've seen in anime, especially Studio Ghibli. They have a lot of boy girl relationships that aren't romantic, and I
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that. But it's like they spend like the whole movie kind of like tiptoeing around the topic, and then they never really resolve it, and then all of a sudden it's resolved without much explanation. It
Yeah, because
just
the movie's cast is six people, three boys and three girls, and the boys are the main character and two of his like friends, I'll say, and then the girls are the main girl and two of her like classmates. They're not really friends, and one's like a brat, one's like the
mhm
nerdy girl. And it's just like a kind of like ragtag mix of
mhm
characters. It's just like they don't really have great chemistry, but they're learning to live together, and that's part of like they're in this danchi, this torn down apartment, and they find like budamen. It's like a dollar store ramen, and I don't know. Do you remember that scene very much where they find the food
uh-huh
the first time?
yeah the
Because
like
I watched this and I didn't watch this with English subs, and he said like Budaman kan like it's just like oh yeah so much Budaman, but I was just like how do they translate this to English like, and I changed it to the English subs on Netflix and it was like oh yeah ramen jackpot, and I was like I guess, but like Budaman is a bread, it's like the dollar store bread of ramen that you can get. That's it's tasty, but it's worth like 50 cents.
mhm yeah, and it's so the whole thing with Nopo, and then with the other like mystical character that shows up on the like at the theme park, the Ferris wheel, and then the others that show up at the end. I guess what they're supposed to represent is like the spirit of the building or something. I don't know if that's
Yeah,
anything
that's
within
what I
like
got out of it
Japanese
too.
mythology.
It's not mythology. It's more about like culture. Just like you know, this is the past. It's more of it's just a metaphor. It's not even
Mm.
like a cultural thing. Just a metaphor.
So yeah, so figured like by the end it was like, oh, this is the spirit of the building. That's why he doesn't leave it. But he does leave it at one part when they go the second time they go to another building to search for food. But it's just like it just didn't make any sense. They keep coming back for him, and he's like, "Okay, I'll go with you." Then he doesn't go with them. Then they come back for him again, and then he's like, "Oh, this is where I leave, and then you guys are gonna go home." And then at the beginning, Natsume was like, "Oh, this isn't the first time I've been drifting out at
Yeah,
sea like this," and they never freaking explain that again. Like, what was the
yeah, yeah.
point of that?
I forgot about that.
That
She's
had
like, oh
like
yeah, it
nothing to
lasted a
do with the
day.
story.
Yeah, yeah. This was, and it's really disappointing because I really was. Everyone was saying this director was so good, and I liked his first thing. And his debut was Penguin Highway. Have you seen Penguin Highway or not?
No, I
You never
haven't.
even heard? Yeah, it's based on a book that I liked a lot, and the movie was good, but it's based on a book. This was all an original
Mhm.
movie, so it's just like that makes it different, and the idea sucked. Whereas with Penguin Highway, the book was good, so the movie was like it's hard to go wrong when you have a good source material. This was
Mhm.
original source. He wrote it and directed it, and it fell flat.
Yeah, like I said before, I feel like they're just trying to capture that aesthetic from that train scene and Spirited Away, and they just didn't have a sensible story to go with it. So it was like, in the end, I'm just there thinking like, what's the point of the story? Cause I,
Yeah, but at least the movie has like a at the end it has a happy ending. They all get back home, and it's just like okay, we learned, we all grew, and like only wait, did a day pass? Is that like the consistent consensus? Because
well,
her
that's
mom,
the very ending, right? Like it seems like they got back pretty much the time they got left, like almost no time passed, right?
yeah, yeah, like
And
Narnia.
whether it was a day or an hour or something, they don't really say, but like I guess from what Natsume said in the beginning, she's like, well, when it's happened before, I wake up and it's the same time, so that's kind of what I figured happened. But then at the very end,
Like her mom was like, "Oh, Natsume, I finally found you." Like she was like crying, you know?
yeah, yeah, and then at the very last line of the movie, was it Kosuke's mom was like, "Don't go running away this time" or something. Don't go drifting
Yeah.
off this time. So
Hmm.
like, she knew what happened, but it was like, why that makes no sense. Why? I didn't like it. Why they added that little bit at the end? They kind of wanted you to think like, oh, were they really out there? Were they really gone for longer? But then like the rest of it doesn't make any sense if that happens. So I didn't like it.
Yeah, it's like a coming of age story because they just graduated from about to go to junior high with so many metaphors, but it's like, are these metaphors really metaphors or is this reality? Because like, did this really happen to them, or was it like kind of like a group psychosis? I don't know, and I don't
Uh-huh.
care anymore.
Yeah, he had the pictures of it, so it's like kind
Yeah,
of like,
with
oh, it
Noble
really
with Noble
happened.
in the pictures.
But yeah, just I don't know. None of it seemed like there was nothing grounding it enough to feel like any part of it was real or not. It was like there was just enough to say, "Oh yeah, this really happened," but then there wasn't enough to like confirm that it actually happened. So it's and like I'm okay with things that like leave it up to interpretation whether it's really happened or not. But this was like it was kind of like I don't know. It was just poorly done. There was too much to say it really happened when it doesn't make any sense for it to have really happened based on everyone's reactions when they get back. Like they should have been gone for days. They should have had like search parties out or something. Well, they should have been in a building that was torn down if they were really gone that long.
And they also like they saw other buildings that like, oh, that's the department store I would go to, and they had memories there. But it's like, are you guys in the future? Are you guys like, what's going on? And I didn't really care enough to ask questions until the movie ended, and I was just like, what did I watch?
Yeah, and
So
like I
yeah,
understand the other buildings they came across were buildings from their past, but like when they went to those buildings, they didn't really learn anything about themselves. They didn't really develop their characters.
and the only characters that really mattered were the main guy and the main girl. Everyone else was just like filler, and it's kind of just
Uh
like
huh.
they didn't need to be there. They were just a waste of space in the movie.
Yeah, and the whole thing with like when Natsume was like under the water, and then like this black stuff was coming up, and again when
Yeah, the creature.
she and Napo were the only ones left on that apartment building before the others came back for them, and they get surrounded by this black stuff. Like it didn't make any sense. Like there's no explanation to what that is. What was it? Was it the past catching up with her, getting her stuck in the past, or was it?
I think that's what I got out of it. I think it was a metaphor, but this movie had too much metaphors for me to like try
Yeah.
to cipher through and be like, okay, that's what this means. And it's just I'm usually the like show don't tell kind
Hmm.
of guy, but this movie needed to tell me more
Yeah, because
stuff because I was just
then
like,
when
what are you showing?
Natsume's on the roof with Nopo and they're getting like captured by all this black stuff, he they're like, "Oh no, what are we gonna do? There's no way out." And he's just like, "Don't worry." And then they get completely covered in it, completely submerged, and then it's like, "Don't worry, it'll be all right." And then they just wake up, and like everything's fine. So like, what was the whole point of that scene? Nothing happened.
Yeah,
Like
it's
nothing
this movie
changed.
was, and I expected more from Ishida, the director, and I'm really upset, and I'm done being like, anytime someone says, "Oh, this is the next big thing," I'm just gonna be like, I don't believe you. I need, yeah, his first project, Fumiko's Confection. It's on YouTube. You can watch it. He put it on YouTube himself, and it's greatly animated. It's cute, but it's 3 minutes, so it's just like
Hmm.
anything that's 3 minutes long, you can do. But once it's like 2 hours long, you're pushing it, man. You're pushing it.
Yeah, maybe if this movie was shorter, had less metaphors, then maybe it could have, landed. And I was hoping you could offer some more insight into the Japanese stuff of this movie to make me appreciate it more, but I don't feel like anything you've told me really makes me think the movie's any better than I thought it was.
Yeah, the biggest thing that I have to say is about Donshi and what a Donshi is, but that doesn't really change how you feel about the movie. And the movie's a bunch of metaphors that I can't explain to you. Just the biggest thing was the title calling it a drifting home. In the movie, it's called like drifting Donchi, and Donchi is a Japanese term. It's just like home is it's a big word where Donchi is a specific thing. So it's just kind of, that's my gripe with the translation, but that's it.
Yeah, so that's about all I have to say about it. Didn't really
Same here.
I thought I would like it with that opening scene. I thought it'd be great, but then after that it was just kind of a lot of senseless stuff. So, yeah, I give it a 5 out of 10.
Yeah, for me, 2 out of 5, and it's actually better than Bubble. Bubble was not a good movie
Really?
to me. So
In that case, maybe I won't watch Bubble because I was kind of excited to watch that one. But yeah. But I did watch Cyberpunk Edge Runners. When you're done, let me know and we'll do that one next.
yeah, I'm a slow anime watcher, but I'll finish it pretty soon. So
It's quick.
that's
It's
been
only 10 episodes.
yeah, I have lots of thoughts about it already. So let's do that one next. All right.
All right. So if you've made it this far, thank you for listening. And this will be on YouTube and Spotify. Please like, share, subscribe, do whatever you gotta do. Help us get the word out, and we'll see you next time.